Yogananda Potru. Yogananda Potru. Query raise you have raised some query, right?
Yeah, regarding that, up to which date the evening session will be continue? Timings.
That is, I have told, right? We can see this week. Otherwise, we can go for the another weekend period. We can initiate that like.
What, ma'am?
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Morning itself, I have told you, Kana.
Yeah, morning I got a call regarding it. They had been told that it will be for 1 week, it seems.
Yeah. We can see if it is not comfortable, we can go for the another thing. Okay.
Okay. Actually, I was not able to attend. This is my first class. Previous 2 classes I not attended it.
Okay.
So, okay.
Okay, please continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sir will be joining in within some minutes. Please wait. Tamal Seven, sir.
சொல்லுங்க மேம்.
You can continue the session, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Hey guys, good evening. Let's get started for today's session. Let me share my screen. Yeah, can you all see my screen? Can everyone confirm? Okay. Yeah, thanks for confirming. What is the difference between onload event and component did mount? Yeah, so onload event and component did mount is it behaves as same. In the case of pure JavaScript, so you may use onload. In the case of your React, so we will use component did mount. Okay, so in the case of behavior, so both onload event and component did mount does the same. Have I answered your question? Okay. Yeah. So do you guys have any questions on the topics that we covered so far? So did you guys tried it? So tried your life cycle methods. Do you guys face any new things or any issues or the change in hierarchy that I mentioned, like mounting, updating, and unmounting, and those things? Do you guys tried it? Okay. Yeah. Already. Okay. So let's get started for today's session. So far we saw some basic things. So some fundamentals. So it's not like basics. So it's very fundamental of your React, the states, the props, the lifecycle methods, and how to handle events and fragments and other things. Okay. So we are done with some fundamentals now. Let's move on to create some real-time things. So today we will be covering how to handle forms, and we will see if time permits, we will see a library called formic, and that's the agenda for today. Okay, so let's get started with some form handling. So form handling, as you guys know, so form handling is nothing but so whatever a web application that you take, so there will be some input that you want to take from the user. Okay, it can be a text, it can be an email, it can be a number, or it can be anything. Okay, so it can be anything that you get from the user. Okay, so it getting information from the user is nothing like we will be having a form. So basic HTML form. Inside that we will have the corresponding tags like input type text and input type email and other things. Okay, so this is what we basically see in the case of our form handling. Okay, the same applies to your React as well. Okay, so we will have certain fields and certain on submit functions. Okay, so based on that we'll get the data from the user and have it in our memory. Okay, so that's what we are going to achieve today. So let's get started. So what I'll do is in my app.js, so I already had my counter application, right? So let's run the application. Till then that we can see the current progress. Just give a minute. Yeah, so this is what we saw in the last class. Okay, so what we'll do is we will create a component for your forms. Okay, so I will create a component for form instead of counter. What I will do is I'll create a thing for form. Okay, so what kind of a form that I'm going to do is sort of an example that we can take. Okay, let's take job application. Okay, so basic a form. So it takes some candidate name, so candidate's age or some things we will discuss them now. Okay, so the first thing is obviously we need to import our React component. So React component. Okay, so so class job application. So this is an example that I'm going to take. So it has a form field like student, I mean candidate name, candidate the option or the job he is trying to apply, and some sort of some like three fields we will take. Okay, so let's see. So component here and a render function here. What I'll do is I'll have a return here. Okay, so I told you, right? So I'm going to have a form. Okay, so basic form tag, so nothing new, normal HTML forms. Okay, so here I'm going to have each and every form fields. So basic form that I'm going to do is, first thing is I'm going to have an input type equal to text. Okay, okay, so this is the first form. Okay, and let me have a name for it. So name is, this is going to be candidate name, right? So candidate name. So because this is a job application, so I'm going to show you an example of job application. So we will have form fields like candidate name. Okay, and role he is applying for. So role applied, and what sort of things that we can have. So candidate age. Okay, we'll take two things. I mean three things basically. So one is your text, one is your number, one is your select checkbox. Okay, so that's what we are going to do today. So I can have a name called candidate name here. Okay, so we are done. Now next, what kind of form field we can have is candidate age. Okay, we will have it as a name called candidate age here, and it's going to be number, right? So I can have number. Same way here. So role applied for. So role applied for is nothing like I'm going to have it as a select options. Okay, so yeah, the user need to select from the options. Okay, I can have the field for now. Okay, so select. I can have some option. So what kind of an option that I can have is something like React developer. Okay, so I can have one more thing or something like this. Node developer and Merge developer. Okay, so it's something like this. So we have a form. Okay, so it has input type text, candidate name, and it has select option. Three fields. Okay, so I will have a name for this as well. So this is going to be candidate role applied. Okay, so what is the role he's applying? So simple. So simple job application form. So I'm going to export them. So export default job application. Okay, simple form. So what I'll do is in my app.js, I will have this particular form. So my app.js is the first component that is going to load, right? So yesterday I mentioned you, right? So it's a root component. So I will have my job application here. Okay. So here below my counter application, I can have my job application. Simple. Okay. So see, form is ready now. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll remove my counter application for now. Okay. So we'll have the job application alone now. Simple. Okay. So it takes a text box. it takes a number, something like age here, okay, and here it's a form field, okay. So it looks weird, okay. I can add some CSS here, okay. So something like BR tag, so not a CSS. I can have a break here, okay. So it will look look good now, okay. So and I can have a label here, so label. So this is the candidate name, right? So I can have a candidate name and label here, okay. So candidate name, basic thing, okay. So candidate name here. The same applies to your candidate age, okay? And same applies to your role applied for, okay. So role applied, we can have role applied for now or for, okay. So that's what I wish. So we have a form that takes input like candidate name, candidate age. So this takes as a text, this takes a number, and this is something from your select options, okay. So this is the thing now. So now we have a form here, okay. Actually there are two types of uh, uh, form components here. There are two types of forms. One is, so please have a look on it. Okay, see here, one is controlled forms. So controlled forms is nothing but, so it's simple. See here, controlled forms is nothing but it is going to be your each and every form field here, right? So text box, a number, a select options, other things, right? So these are going to be controlled by your states. Okay, so that's just something called controlled forms. Uncontrolled forms is nothing but simple. So it is not going to control by your state. Okay, instead we will have a, so basic JavaScript, right? So we will have an ID here. In your JavaScript, what you basically do, you will have an ID for each and every name here. Okay, so candidate name. So whenever we submit the form, we will get the ID set like document.get element by ID of that particular field and get that value, and we will be storing it in a variable. Okay, so that's how we use. Okay, so that's something called uncontrolled form. So controlled forms are nothing but your each and every states, sorry, each and every form fields are going to controlled by your states. Okay, so what I'll do is I will add a button here. So we need to submit here, right? So I will have a button to submit. Okay, so a button, we can have an input type equal to submit. Okay, so that's not an issue. So input type equal to submit. Okay, simple. So I will have a button here. Okay, simple. So nothing new. So now what I'll do is, so I told you, right? So I'm going to show you controlled forms now. Okay, so I'm not going to show uncontrolled. So basically we'll follow controlled form only. So that's why we are in React now. So if you use uncontrolled forms, there is no need to use React at all. So you can use basic JavaScript. Okay, so now I'm going to use controlled form. So what is a controlled form? Each and every form fields is going to be controlled by your states. Okay, so let's see. So construct app, I'm going to initialize a state. Okay, so what is the state now? So there are three things, right? Candidate name, age, and apply. Okay, so I will have a state, something like this. So this dot state, okay, and I can have the same name, something like this. Candidate name equal to empty. Okay, initially there is no, the form will not be filled, right? So candidate age should be empty. Okay, and I can have a candidate role applied here. Okay, so it's going to be again empty, simple. Okay, so I just had a state here with three values: candidate name, candidate age, and candidate role applied. Okay, I'm going to use this state and to control each and every form field. Okay, so how to do that? So basically your input type text and input type number, whatever the input is, it has a value, it has a attribute called value, right? So that's what I'm going to achieve. So here value, I'm going to have a value attribute here. Okay, so I'm going to bind that state. So this dot state dot, so candidate name, simple. Okay, same way for your age. So candidate age, same way for your candidate role applied, simple. Okay, so now what we have done here is we have added a value attribute. So you know that already. So if you go into a normal JavaScript operation, so if you go into a normal JavaScript forms, okay, so JavaScript HTML form, okay, so if you go here, So if I go here, okay, so what I will do is, see here, I have a form here. Okay, so first name and last name. So this is basic JavaScript. Okay, so your each and every its input element will have a value attribute, right? So suppose if I have value equal to something like Tamil here and save, sorry, here run it. Okay, see, by default the value will be assigned, okay, because we have an value attribute. So what it means is whatever that you type in here, that is going to be in your value attribute. So that's how it's mean. Okay, so if suppose if I have a different name, like, and run this, it will be adjusted here. Okay, the same applies in your React here. Okay, so initially I have everything as empty. Okay, so and appended my state to value here and value here. Okay, so now if you go to the form here, okay, now it's empty because we have our state with the empty value. Suppose if I have something here, okay, and save here, okay, see, by default the value is being applied. Same way if I have something like 26 here, okay, that will be applied. So that's how your React forms works. Okay, suppose here candidate role applied has React node and Mern. Okay, suppose if I want to have Mern to be selected by default, what we need to do, first thing is you need to add a value attribute here. So in the case of option, we need to have a default value, right? So each and for everything, so I can have something called React here, and I can have a value here called node. Okay, so I can have a value here called Mern. Okay, so this is how it works. So I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so now candidate role applied is empty. Okay, so that's why the first option is been selected by default. Okay, suppose if I want to have my Mern developer by default here, so what I need to do, so I'm going to bind my Mern here, right? So because the value of your Mern developer is Mern, right? So I can have Mern here. Okay, and see, by default Mern is selected. So if I refresh also, the Mern is applied here. Okay, so basically what we are doing here is we are binding our React state to each and every form fields that we have. So input type text, input type number. So here is a select option. Okay, so basically we are binding them, and that's why we are saying them as a controlled form. So each and every form inputs is going to be controlled by your states. Okay, so now I'm coming here. Okay, see, watch it clearly. I'm typing here actually, but it is not going to affect. So this is a logical question. So you guys are going to answer me. So I'm typing here. Why is not affecting here? So I'm typing here. So consider. So here, consider this example. So I'm typing here, but it is not going to. It's not allowing me to type. So what is the reason? Any guess? The state is fixed. Exactly. So state is read only. Okay. So state is empty. Okay. So even if you type here, okay, because you control them with your state. Okay. So what you need to do is whenever you type here, okay, you need to apply that value to your state. So what it means is you need to append something called on change, and whenever you type that particular field, okay, it needs to be applied to that particular state also. Okay, so I'm typing here something here. Okay, so see here now, I will have a function in on change. Okay, so I will have the on change function. See now, and in my on change function, I'm going to call a function called handle change. Okay, so I'll write the particular function here. So handle change. I will type here. Okay, so typing. Okay, I will have this console. Okay, so see here now, I will have the same applied to each and every form fields, and here as well. Okay, so I'm using the same function to handle everything. Okay, so I just had a console here. Okay, so see here now. So I'm typing here. See, I'm typing now. It's calling that particular function, but it is not reflecting in the UI. So what is the reason? So this is what I mentioned on that day. So even if you type here, it is not going to affect your change your state. Okay. So what is the reason here? Because you have not updated the value that you type in here to that particular state. Okay. suppose if I type something like 5-character length here, that particular value should be applied to your state, right? So this dot state dot candidate name, right? So you haven't done here, okay? And that's why it's not affecting anymore here, okay? So that's the reason. So first, you are clear on this. So this is the critical part of your forms. You guys are clear on this? Can everyone confirm? Do you guys have any questions? So I want to make sure that you understand this. So this is the concept. So I am typing here. So why is not reflecting in the UI, but it's calling that particular function. So what is the reason? Because you have binded a state to that value attribute. So whenever you type in, your value should be changed in your state as well. Okay, but you are not doing here. Okay, so you are not updating the state. That's why. Also, state is read only, as you know. We cannot change the state value. That's why it's not reflecting here. Okay, so that's the thing. So now, what is the solution? So you guys are going to answer me. So what is the solution? So whenever we type in, we need to call our set state and set our value to that particular state. Simple. Yes, exactly. That's what you mentioned. Okay. So now here, maybe like in your JavaScript part, you might have learned event. So okay, I need to confirm that. So do you guys learn event? So event, target, and other things? I'm not sure about that. Okay, no worries. So whatever that I type in, okay, I need to get that in my onChange function, right? So inside onChange function, I need to get what is the value that I type in here. Okay, so I need that particular value, right? So that is what something called event. Okay, so onChange, if you bind a function here, okay, something like this, you will get a attribute called event here. Okay, so if you inside the event, there will be an attribute called, so here, so it's not like only for the onChange. Whatever the event that you type do, it's like on click, on mouse enter, on leave, on submit, and whatever the things that you do, you will be getting an event object in your function. Okay, this is not specific to your React. Okay, so please have it that in mind. This is very specific to your JavaScript. The same applies to your JavaScript. Whenever you write on click function in your JavaScript, and have a function inside that particular function, have a function inside your onChange or on click, you will be getting an event attribute by default to that function. Okay, so the same applies here. Okay, so whenever I type in here, so onChange, I am calling a function called handle change here. Okay, so inside that, okay, there will be so event is an object, so basic JavaScript. So inside that, there will be an object called target. Okay, so event dot target. Okay, so what means is, this target is nothing but the input text, the input field that you type in here. Okay, so see here now, I'm going to console the event dot target. Okay, simple. So I'm going to refresh this. So now see, I'm going to type in here. Okay, see, I'm typing the candidate name. It is giving me input type text candidate name. Okay, same way I'm going to type in here. Okay, it is showing me number candidate age. Same way, if I do same here, okay, it is going to give me the selector. Okay, so basically the target attribute or the target property inside your event, okay, will give you the exact target that you are handling. Okay, for example, here you call onChange, you are calling handle change function. Here onChange, you are calling the same function. You can have different function, but it is ideal to have one function to handle every input changes. Okay, so here onChange. Okay, so basically everything will be available here. Okay, so inside your, so whatever the type in here, so whatever you do in your target, that will be applied here in your event.target. Okay, so now you need to know, because you wrote a common function, right? So you need to differentiate between each and every input text box. Okay, so what you need to do, so we have given a name to each and every form field, right? So name, candidate age, and candidate role applies. Okay, so if you want to access that, we will have an attribute called event.target.name. Okay, so see here now, so I am typing in my candidate name now. Okay, so candidate name is applied. So what it means, so your candidate name is modifying here. Okay, same way if I type in something here, my candidate age is been applied here. Same way here. See, So in order to differentiate between each and everything, that's why I had an attribute for each and every form field called name, okay, and gave value to them. So name equal to candidate name. So this form field has a name called candidate age. This particular form field has a name called candidate role applied, okay. So I'm getting that particular name. Now you need to know what is the value that they type in, okay. So now how to take that? So any guess? So you need to know the value of the form field that you type, how to get that value. Exactly. So someone mentioned here. Okay. So same. So console.log of event dot target dot value. Okay. Simple. So now let's go here. See, I'm going to type T. Okay. So candidate name. So what it means is your candidate name is changed to T. Same if I do go here, okay. So candidate age is modified to 3. Same if I click on node, so candidate role applied is node now. Same way if I do React here, okay, candidate name role applied is React, okay. So now you know the name, you know the value, okay. So now can we update our state? So now we can update our state, right? So we know the name. So name of the value that name of the property that we want to change the state. We know the value that is going to update it to the particular form field. Okay. Now we can update the state, right? So that's what I'm going to achieve now. Okay. So since this is like an object, okay, I'm going to use a object destructuring. Okay. So inside event, I have target attribute. So I'm going to do a object destructuring. So inside event, I have a target attribute. Okay. And inside target attribute, what I need name and value, right? So again, inside target, I'm going to do a object destructure. Okay. So this is what in the first class I took the basic class. So if I type in here, so console.log of name, comma value. Okay. So same. If I do refresh here, okay. If I type in here, okay. See candidate name. Okay. If I type in here, 3 here. Okay. Node React. Okay, so everything applies. Okay, so basic thing what I did here is inside event. Okay, so inside event we will have an attribute called target. Okay, and inside target we will have an attribute called name and value. Okay, so instead of taking like event.target.name and event.target.value, I used object destructuring. So how can we do that? So here we had an event here. Inside event we will have a target, right? So basic object destructuring. So remove this, have an object here, and inside event we'll have called target attribute. Okay, and now inside target we'll have name and value, right? So just go colon here. Inside from target we'll have name and comma value. Okay, simple. Okay, so you understand this? So do you guys understand the object destructuring part? Okay, so now we are ready. So we are now ready to update our name, update our value. Okay, because we know the state property value and the value here. Okay, so how to do that? So this dot set state. So now here you are going to answer me how to dynamically update this object. So suppose if you want to update your state, you need the candidate name. Okay, so you will apply directly something like this. Okay, same way if you know the age, okay, you can have something like value here. Same way candidate role applied, you can directly have the value here. Okay, so now this particular key is dynamic. Okay, so now how to update your state? So basic JavaScript, how can you do that? Any other answers? So you need to, so you understand my question, right? Did everyone understand my question? What I am trying to say? So if you want to update your state, okay, what do you need? The value here and the value here. Okay, so the property key here and the value. Okay, so you know that the value is here. Okay, you know the key is here. Okay, can we do in this way? So what it does here? So what we'll do if we use it in this way? What will happen? The name, your state will have a attribute called will have a property called name, and the value will be applied to that particular thing. Okay, but what we need here in this particular name property or the key, we need our candidate name and candidate age and other things. Okay, so how can we do that? Any answers? No, you cannot do that, right? So if you do name equal to value, what will happen? And in your set state, if you use name in this way, okay, it will add a property called name. So what it means is you are adding a property called name and it has some value inside it. Okay, so this is what this particular syntax is. This is we don't need in this way. Whenever you use name here, okay, so here the name is dynamic, right? So your candidate name and candidate age and candidate role apply. That should apply here. So that's what my question is. So dynamically updating your value because your key is dynamic, you need to use a different syntax. Okay, so let me say you just need to place a square bracket here. Simple. Okay, so now what will happen here is your name in whatever that is inside your name, that will be applied as a key here. Okay, suppose if a candidate name comes here, okay, so this is for example, if the candidate name comes here, this syntax is nothing but something like this. So candidate name equal to value. Okay, so this is how it will apply. Okay, so please note this syntax. So you will be using it in multiple places. Okay, so if you want to dynamically update a particular property in your object, okay, and you don't know the key value here, you don't know the key, right? So it will be coming dynamically, right? So you need to use something called square bracket. Okay, so now let's see. So I'm doing refresh here. Okay, so now see the UI is updated because you have updated your state as well. And see here, candidate name is A, and whatever the type in that is applying here. Same way, age. See here, node. It is modifying your things here. See, clear. So clear on clear on this particular concept. So why do we did this? So all your values and name, everything will be available inside your event object. So it can be like on change or on click, whatever. Okay, that event attribute, we have our target. What is a target? So whichever that you modify here. So for example, if you type in here in your on change, if you modify anything in this particular form field, you have a function called on change, and you are calling a handle change function in that particular on change. So if you do that, event attribute will be available here. Okay, so as a param. Okay, inside that there will be an object. There will be an object called target. Okay, so what is the target? So if you type in something like this, this particular thing is a target. Same way, if you do the same thing here, this will be the target, and same applies here as well. And if you want to take the name, and if you want to take the value, you need to take it in this form: event dot target dot name, event dot target dot value. Okay, so this is how you need to get that property. Suppose if you don't want to do this in this way, okay, we can just do object destructuring. Okay, inside event we'll have target, and inside target we will have name and value. Okay, so you can do it in this. So since okay, so far clear on this? Clear on the handle change? Can everyone confirm? So this is the very basics of your forms. Please ask any questions that you have. Okay, so without this, you cannot proceed with any development, because every web application will have a form inside them. Okay, yeah. Alrighty. Okay, so now we are done now. Okay, so now what we need to do is, whenever we click on submit function, okay, so whenever we click on the submit function, we need to submit to a particular, we need to call a particular function, or get that value and send it to the server and save it to the database. So basically we do this in this way. Okay, so whenever you click on the submit button, whatever that you typed here, that will be you will be getting it in the on submit. Okay, so let's see here. So form will have attribute, right, on submit. Okay, basic thing on submit. This is specific to JavaScript. No, nothing new here. Okay, so this dot, I will have a function called handle submit. Okay, in order to handle the submit alone. Okay, so handle submit here. Okay, okay, so now I told you, right, if it is a okay, before that Have you guys learned prevent default? A property called prevent default in your events. Is there any chances of it? Okay, so then I need to explain you about how forms work. Okay, so I'm going to explain how forms are available before. Okay, so traditional forms, how it works. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say. Okay, so traditional web application, it's not like now only the modern application uses React, Angular, something like jQuery and other things. Okay, how basic now form works is, see here now. I have a function called on submit. In that particular on submit, I have a function. Okay, so I'll do what I'll do is I'll do a console.log of, okay, submitted. Okay, I will have a console here, simple console. Okay, what I have done is on submit, I called a function. It has submitted. It just had a log called submitted. Okay, but see what happens. So I'm going to type in something here. I'm going to have some here thing here. Okay, watch it clearly. I'm going to submit. See what happens. Your page is refreshed. Okay, and see all your properties are here. So candidate name, candidate age, candidate role applied. Okay, so this is how a traditional web application works. Okay, so a very old application, which is very specific to only pure JavaScript. If you implement this, so this is what happened. Okay, what will happen here is whatever that you type in, even if you type in password here, that particular password will be going in this way. Okay, so in order to overcome this behavior, so this is a default behavior of your JavaScript forms or HTML forms. This is very default behavior. Okay, so in order to overcome this, JavaScript gives us a property or a function called prevent default. Okay, so whenever we submit, so this is very specific to Angular or jQuery and whatever the things. Okay, it is not like specific to your React alone. Okay, so what we need to do here is here. I told you, right? Whenever you do an event handling, something like on change, on click, or on submit, okay, you will be getting an event attribute here, right? So event here, okay, same like handle change, okay. Inside event, there will be a function called prevent default, okay. So prevent default, okay. So this is a function that's been given by your pure JavaScript itself, okay. So what it means is, so we basically have it as short name E here, okay. So what it means is this will prevent from doing as a default behavior. That's what, simple, okay. So your default behavior is whenever you type in here and submit a submit here, okay, on submit, what you'll do is if you'll do submit here, it will refresh your page, okay, it will post your data to a particular URL, okay, and it will pass every values inside the URL itself. So this is the default behavior. In order to overcome this behavior, we need to have a function called event.prevent default. Okay, so preventing from acting as a default forms. Okay, so now if I do this, so here I'm refreshing now. So now if I type in something here and type in something here and here, okay, submit. See, submit. Your page is not refreshing and your forms are not being sent here, and it is calling the desired function that we need. So what we need, whenever we click on, whenever we submit the form, it should go to this particular function. Okay, so our default behavior or the desired behavior is achieved. Okay, so how did we achieve? By preventing to act them as a default behavior, and overcome that and handle this as a normal function. Okay, so that's why we use event.prevent default. Okay, so this will be a question in your interview. This is not specific to React. I'm stressing again, it's very specific to your JavaScript itself or your jQuery or anything. Okay, so you need to use, whenever you submit a function, okay, you need to use something called prevent default. Okay, so basically what it does is it will not refresh your page and pass your values over here in the URL. Okay, clear on this? Do you guys have any questions? Can everyone confirm? So I could get responses from only few people. Can everyone confirm? Okay. So now, so what is the advantage of controlled forms now? That's the question here. Okay, so now on submit, okay, now whatever the type that you type in your form will be available in your state, right? So we can directly print the state and see what is the form that we typed. Okay, so console.log of this dot state. Okay, I'm just consoling whatever that we type in here. Okay, I'm doing refresh here, and I type in something here and type something here, something here, submit. Okay, see, whatever that we typed in, that will be inside our state. Okay, so that's what we have did. We have just binded all our states to our value attribute here. Okay, so this is the advantage of your control component. Okay, so you need not do something like whenever you submit the function. Okay, you need not do like document.get element by id and get that particular form field here, same way each and every form field here and the form field here. Okay, so that's something called uncontrolled way. Okay, so this is controlled way. Okay, so whenever you just bind your state to the value of each and every form field. Okay, and on change bind a function here, something called handle change, and there you can update your value with the latest value. So whenever you type in, your state will also be modified because you call set state here. Okay, so your state will also be modified. Okay, that's the thing. So now all values that you type in your form, that will be available inside your state. Okay, so you basically just pass this data to the server and do the things that you need. Okay, so instead of doing each and every form field here, you can do it in that way. Okay, so that's the advantage of your controlled forms. Okay, so now your submit and everything is done. So this is how your normal form handling works. Okay, so far clear on this? So before moving on to the next topic, so if you have any doubts, please ask me now. So each and every line. Okay, so you should be clear with each and every line that we did here. Okay, so then only you come to know how forms works. How to get multiple candidate details. Okay, simple, right? So you need to have array here. Okay, so you need to have one more array here, and using that array you just push your each and every student details that you typed in into that particular student. Okay, so basically you need to have the same set of things as an array and push every form fields into that particular array. So that's how you need to handle multiple candidates. Okay, so now we are done with our form fields and how to on change and on submit what we need to do and other things. Okay, we are done. Okay, so now we need to do some validations, right? For example, I go here. Okay, so refresh here. Okay, if I do submit, okay, it is submitted. Your form is submitted, and candidate name and candidate age is everything is applied here. Okay, so basic form. Basic validations. What it means is candidate name should be something like you can have anything, or it cannot be empty. And candidate age can be, you can have a validation like candidate age should be greater than 18 or 21. You can have anything, and so basic validation. So you need to do that, do those things, right? So we can do them here. Okay, so here what we'll have here is we will throw a message here for each and every form field. Okay, something called errors. Okay, so to have errors for each and every form field. Okay, so for now we don't need error for our role update because it the user needs to select at least one. Okay, so it needs not it need this particular form field does not need validation. So these two fields need validation. So what is the validation? Candidate name should not be empty. Same way, candidate age should not be empty, and it should be greater than 18. Okay, so that's what we are going to achieve now. So basic validation. So where can we do that? Here is, so we'll have one more state. Okay, so something called errors. Okay, here for each and every form field we are going to display the error, right? So what we'll do here is I will have error inside errors. I will have error something like this. Okay, same way candidate age as well. Okay, so we'll have two errors. Okay, so here in below your candidate name and other things. Okay, so here below here, okay, what I will do is, or in the side or whatever the thing here, see here now, if this dot state dot errors dot candidate name. Okay, so if there's an error in your candidate name, we are going to print it here. Okay, that's what. So simple. Okay, if not, we can have empty. So basic conditional rendering here. Okay, so what I will do is I have a particular object called error inside my state. Okay, so I'm going to validate each and every candidate name. Okay, if it is empty, I will have a message here, right? Here, like your candidate name is empty, something like this. Okay, I will update the state. Okay, same way, I will update my candidate age as well here. Okay, so if the age is less than 18, okay, and it is empty, I will have a message here, right? Please check your age. Okay, so we can have that way. Okay, so before that, I can what I will do is, okay, I will show it in the last. Okay, for now, whenever we change here in your handle change, okay, we will have that particular validation. Okay, so what I will do is I will have the error object. Okay, something called errors. What I'll do is I'll take the copy from my error. Okay, so basic um, spread operator. Okay, so what I'll do is here I have some error here, right? I am taking a copy of it. Okay, so inside and I have it in a variable called errors. Okay, so now I'm going to do a validation. So what are all the validation? If the name, so here name, right? So after that only we need to update our state. So if the validations are done, okay, so basic thing here, if the name equal to, so what is the name here? Candidate name, right? So what is the validation that we need for our candidate name? So if we'll have a switch statement then. Okay, so here we have two form fields. We can have if condition or we can have a switch statement. So I'll have a switch statement. So switch here, if the name is candidate name, so what should be the validations? We will be writing those things here. Okay, same way, if the field is candidate age, okay, so the field is candidate age, we will have the validation in right and inside this. Okay, so that's what I have done here. So I will be getting name here. Okay, so what is the name? Either the candidate name and candidate age and candidate role applied. So we are going to achieve validation for candidate name and candidate age. Okay, so what I have did here is I just had a switch statement. Okay, so based on the name that is coming, I'm going to do a validation. Okay, the first thing is if the candidate name is coming. Okay, so what should be the validation? So value should not be empty. Okay, so if the value is empty, what we need to do? So we need to update our state, right? So for example, I will have a copy of it here. Errors of name equal to candidate name is empty. Okay, basic thing. Candidate name is empty. Okay, so you understand this? So what I have done here? Did you understand this? So whenever there is a name coming, candidate name coming here, I'm checking for its value. Okay, if the value is empty, so basically here, so value is null or empty. I am having a message inside my errors object. What means here is candidate name is empty. Okay, and once it is done, I'm going to do a break here. Okay, simple. The same here, I'm going to do the same inside my candidate age. Okay, okay. The another what another validation we need to have? Else if value dot length, okay, so basic length, right? So length less than 18. Okay, so less than 18. Okay, something like this. So what is the error here? Candidate age is empty, and if the value is candidate age should not be, we can have a message something like should not be less than 18. Okay, simple error message. Okay, so now we are done with basic levels of validation. Okay, so why we use length? So that's what I told you, right? So for example, oh, okay, so I can understand your question. Okay, so it's a number already. We can have it in this way. Sorry. Okay, So I thought it's a candidate name. Okay, so see here. So what I have done here is whenever I type in here, okay, it will come to this particular switch statement here. Okay, candidate name. We'll check if the value is empty. Okay, so it will have candidate name is empty here. Okay, so because the value is empty, what it means is if I remove this, it will throw me an error. Okay, same way candidate age. So I will type in here. Okay, so if there is no number here, I just mention like candidate age is empty. Okay, if the values also I'm adding one more validation, right? Else if value is less than 18, candidate age should not be less than 18. Okay, simple now. Okay, so now I have updated the errors inside only this particular object. It should be updated in our state as well, right? So I will update the state as well here. Okay, so at the last I'm updating the errors as well. Okay, simple. So now if I type in here, okay, my error message will be updated in my state. So now we are going to print them. Okay, so see here now. So that's what I told you. So if there is a error, state dot errors dot candidate name, okay, we are going to print it. Okay, simple. Else empty, or you can have the error message directly if you need. Okay, so same way, if there is an error in your age, so candidate age, we are going to print that age. Okay, so now let's see. So I'm doing, sorry, so I'm typing here. Okay, if I am going to remove this, okay, see, candidate name is empty. Same way I'm typing something like this. See, candidate age should not be less than 18. If I do this, okay. So what is happening here? Candidate age is handle change. So let's print it here. Okay. Console dot log of value here. So I think I'll be getting string. That's why it's happening here. Yes, I'm getting it as a string. Okay, so that's why it's not throwing an error. Okay, so now what you need to do is you need to convert the value to string. Here we can have number of value. Simple. Okay, I'm just converting it to a number. Okay, so it is having it as a string. That's why validation is not happening. Okay, so now let's see. So I'm typing here. Okay, if I remove this, you'll throw me an error, obviously. Okay, candidate name is empty. So I'm typing something like this. Candidate age should not be less than 18. We have 24. Again, what is happening? Sorry, it should be greater than 18. Sorry, sir. Okay. So here I am going to have a validation. Candidate age should not be less than 18. Okay, so that's what else if, okay, simple. So now I type in here empty. Type in here. Okay, so 23. No, guys, just give me a minute. If the number of value what I typed in here, so 23, right? So candidate age should not be less than. I have to have a wrap condition like this. Let's see. So so it should be, yeah, that's what you need to have greater than. Okay, so some manipulation is happening. So else condition is not needed. Okay, so we can have if else if alone. Okay, so else is not needed at all. Oh, else error start name should be empty. So we must to update that. Exactly. So here it should be empty again. So if I type in here and it's working as expected, same. So now, so it's working as expected, same way. So now it's working. Okay, see here now. So, so normal validations. Okay, see here now. So that's what we achieved here. So we missed to add else condition because we are taking a copy of errors here, right? So we are not updating the error newly for each and everything. Okay, so we are taking a copy of it. So when we type in something like 23 here previously, what happens here is this is not updated to empty again, error message. Okay, that's what it was throwing error. Okay, so basic thing here is for whenever the candidate name is typed, if the value is empty, so that is what opposite of value or not equal to value, we are throwing a message called candidate name is empty. Okay. Else we are not having any error message. So empty here. Okay. That's one. Same way for candidate age. If the value you are not typing any value, okay, it will mention you like candidate age is empty here or something like this. See, candidate age is empty. Okay. So if you have a number value greater than less than 18, which means is your age should not be less than 18. Okay. So then it will throw you an error, something like I'm typing to candidate age should not be less than 18. Okay. The same applies for your error and other things as well. Okay. So if everything is correct, we can have empty. Okay. Same way, you can add multiple things, multiple validations, email validation, and other things as well for if you have multiple things here. Okay. So this is how you know to do validations for your React things. Okay. So you can apply some CSS like marking it as red color and showing it in a different message and other things. Okay. Clear on this? Do you guys have any questions? Can everyone confirm? Okay. So now the first part is done. Okay. So we just created a form and we created something called age and number as a name and some options here. Okay. So this is called, so whatever the application that you go in your real time scenario in any organization. So this would be the format. Okay. So we basically have two functions. One is handle change and one something called handle submit. Okay. And maybe like in some companies they may follow in my project what I do is I'll move this particular validation part into a different function and just call them. Okay, so both are same, nothing difference. Okay, instead I will have a different function and have those validations there. Okay, so basic thing is this. Okay, whenever you do handle submit, you need to call event.prevent default. Okay, same way on handle change, something like we need to have a function, something like this. Okay, so basically always prefer controlled form. Okay, because it will be easy for you to whenever you submit your form, all the form fields will be available in your state directly. Okay, and it allows your code to be reduced. Something like if you don't use controlled form, what will happen? You need to have an ID. Okay, or there is something called reference in your React JS. Okay, so we will see it in the React advanced sessions. Okay, there is something called reference, which is very similar to ID. Okay, so what we do if we have ID here, we will be using document.get element by ID, right? Okay. So we should not use it in that way. Okay. We should always use controlled form. Have each and every form field binded with your state value here. Okay. So whenever there is a state change, I mean whenever there is a type that you type, okay. Whenever a value change, okay, you need to update the state as well. So that's why in on change, we are updating our state here. Okay, so updating our state here. Okay, so how to dynamically update them? So if we don't know the key, we can have a placeholder, something like this. So something like square bracket. Okay, and whatever the name value will hold, okay, that will sit here. Okay, and that particular value will be modified. Okay, in addition to that, if you want to have some validation, you can have them here. Okay, so basic switch statement and have errors object also modified in the state. Okay, so it's something like, so So you know the syntax, right? So if you want to modify something like if the key and values are same, okay. So the key and the value both has the same name, okay. You need not mention the something like this, okay. Your JavaScript will understand that key is errors and the value is errors, okay. So that's why I used it in this way. So if it's confusing for you, this is the way, okay. First I'm updating the state of the form field, then I'm updating the errors, okay. So for example, if the same key and values are same, you can have one thing mentioned here, and if your JavaScript object assumes it knows that both the key and value will use the same thing here, okay. So that's the thing. So how to add CSS in React? We will see it in your library class. Okay. So I will combine your React and your Bootstrap and materialize in like I think in 2 days. Okay. There we can add CSS. That's not an issue. So if you want to explicitly have CSS, so I told you, right? So if you have class name, in the case of HTML, we will use something called class. Okay. In the case of your class name, in the case of React, we need to use something called class name. Okay. So for example, here, so suppose if I have a span tag here. Okay. So since you asked, I can have something like this span. Okay. So each and every error message, I will have it in the span tag here. Okay. So for this particular span tag, you can add a class name, okay, and something like red. Okay, you can have any red here. Okay, so show it in red, and you can add CSS to each and every CSS. For example, you can create CSS wherever you want. Okay, so I can create a CSS here, something like index.css. So whatever that you want to do, okay, or you can have anything here. You just need to import it in this way. So I will have index.css, something like this, index.css. Okay, here you can add any name. For example, what is the CSS here? So I told you, right? So I'm having red color. Okay, so I will have a class for that. So dot red. Okay, and inside that I can have a name. Okay, it's loading for me. So red. Okay, so red here. Okay, so we just added a CSS file dot called index.css and added a class called dot red. Okay, or we can have something like error. Okay, so error or something like this, and here I can have the same error. Okay, so now we just created a file called index.css. So you know to import them, right? So you can go ahead here in your index.js, come here. Okay, directly import that particular CSS file. So index.css. So we need to directly import it in this way. Okay, so nothing other than that. So now what will happen here is the CSS should apply here. Okay, so that's how it will work. We cannot resolve. Okay, so now we do this. Okay, see, candidate name is empty. It's applying red color. Okay, so this is how you need to apply CSS in the case of your React. Okay, so what I have did here is just created a file called index.css, added a class here called error, okay, and added a CSS called color red. And I can, since you have imported them in your index.js, that particular CSS file will be available for every components, okay, because you have imported them at the root level in the index.js itself. So whenever I use span class name equal to error here, that class name will be applied, okay. So this is how short, in short, we need to apply CSS in this way. Clear? Have I answered your question? Yeah. Did everyone understand this? How to apply CSS? Okay. So now we are done with the basic React forms. Okay. So this is how we will be handling in real-time scenarios. Okay. So there is one other way. Okay. So there is a library called forming. Okay. So here, so if you go into the documentation itself here, so there will be a weird line here, something like building forms in React without the TS. So what it means is you don't what your formic library does is it will make you easy to create forms. Okay, so for example here you just created states, okay, something like states here, you created handle change function here, you mentioned input text box, error message, and everything here, right? So what your formic library does is, so this is your second topic for today. So formic library, what it does is, it will give you a component called formic. Okay, using that particular form, using that particular component. Okay, your handle change, your state, everything will be handled by your formic library itself. Okay, so it's that much interesting. Okay, so we basically follow real-time forms. I mean, React forms. Okay, so we won't suggest formic. Okay, so but uh, some companies or current companies, something like not leading companies. Okay, so most of the companies trying to preferring your formic library now. Okay, so they are migrating certain forms to formic. Okay, because their job is easy. Suppose if you want to create an application in a day, okay, you can go ahead with formic library, and it's as simple as that. Okay, so let's go on to the formic library. So get started here. Okay, so I will show you a simple example. Okay, this is not the thing. I will go to the basic example. So getting started. So yeah, here it is. Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. So formic. So whenever you get to know formic, you need to know three things. Okay. So whenever you take formic, I will type in here. So whenever you take in formic library, your mind should give you three things. One is initial values. Okay. One is one is validate. Okay, and the last thing is on submit. Okay, so these are the things you need to know before you moving on to the formic library. Okay, so let's see. So we will create the same job application form using your formic library now. Okay, so I will create one more application, something called job app. Okay, I will have a short name for it. Okay, what I'll do is I'll take the entire copy of your job application here. Okay, and transform this particular thing into a form using a formic library. Okay, so in order to use formic library, you need to install a package called formic library. Okay, so here it is. So formic. Okay, so this is the package. So what I'll do is I will do package installation. So, sorry, what happened here? Okay, so I explained you about npm, right? So if you want to use npm, you can use npm install formic. Okay, so in my case I use yarn. Okay, so that's why it's working in the assets, but working as this. Okay, sorry. So since you are using npm, so what is the command? Npm install that particular library. What is the library? Formic library here. Okay, so if you work in the local, use npm install formic. Okay, so I told you, you need to know three things. One is initial values, validate, and on submit. Okay, so we'll come step by step. So this is how I will do now. Okay, so let's see. So formic has been installed. Yes, the formic is ready. So npm start. Okay, let it run. So here I'm going to use formic library, right? So this is the documentation here. Okay, so I don't need my component because this is not your class component. Okay, so when you use formic library, you don't need states at all. Okay, so that's the thing. So you know that whenever we want to create a controlled forms, we need state, and using that state we will be binding them to each and every form fields. Okay, but see the weird thing here. Okay, so we are not going to use states at all. Okay, but we are going to achieve form things. Okay, so how to do that? So we need to first import formic. Okay, so formic, that is the component from formic. So from formic. Okay, so basic things here. Okay, so now you can create directly a functional component. You don't need this anymore. Okay, see, function. I can use job app here. Okay. So job app here. So what it's going to return is a HTML element. Okay. So what is the HTML element? See now. So watch it clearly. I'm going to copy the same return statement that I have here. Okay. So inside my render function, right? I'm going to use the same thing. Okay. And now see, before this particular form, okay. So before this particular form, okay. I told you, right? There is a something called formic. Okay. I'll use that formic here. Okay. And inside the formic, I'll be using that. So that's the syntax here. Okay. So inside the formic, I'll be using that. So before explaining this, this particular form fields and other things. Okay. How do you know formic here? Okay. See, I told you there are three things that you need to mention first. Okay. So whenever you use formic, okay, you need to mention three things. Okay. So your formic component, so this is a formic, right? So your formic component takes three properties. Okay. One is initial values. Okay. And one is, for example, on submit here. Okay. So first I will explain these two. So what is an initial value? So that's the question here. Initial value is nothing but you have a state here, right? That is something called initial values. Okay, only the state. Okay, I'm not going to take errors. Okay, see here now, initial values. Okay, and on submit. So on submit is nothing but it's going to be a function. Okay, so whenever you submit the function, this particular function will be called. So here I will do just like console.log of submitted. Okay, so simple. So what we have done here, I took formic library from my formic component here. Okay, so formic library and a component inside formic library. There is a component called formic. Okay, I just use that component. Okay, it takes three things as a properties. For now, I am explaining two things. One is initial values and one is on submit. Okay, so initial values are nothing but okay. So you are mentioning that these are all the form fields: candidate name, candidate age, and candidate role applied. Okay, and there is something called on submit. Okay, so what is this property is whenever you submit the function, okay, it will call this particular function. So that's what you done here. Okay, so now see, formic library in return will give us a function. Okay, so it will give us a function. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, so inside that you can have something like return statement. So if you go into the documentation, see here, see, this is the formic library. Okay, so what are the properties that it take? Initial values. So validate, I will explain shortly. On submit. Okay, and another thing is inside your formic library, it has something, it returns some function. Okay, so see here, I'm typing it from scratch. Formic library, it takes two properties for now: initial values and on submit. In return, it will give us a function. That's what I mentioned you, a function. See, function. Okay, inside that, okay, so you need to return some elements. Okay, so inside that you need to return whatever the thing that you want. Okay, so for example, I'm having this form, right? I can return the same form. Okay, so here I'm going to use the same form. Okay, so now I'm going to remove these things. I don't need this anymore. Okay, so the same form, see how it get reduced here. Okay, formic library, it takes initial values, it takes on submit. Okay, and other than that, everything is same. Okay, so now you can ask me the question. We need handle submit, we need handle change, we need state, we need errors inside the state, we need what else that we need? That's it. Okay, so we need state, we need handle change, we need handle submit and other things. Okay, that's what the power of your formic. Okay, inside of formic, okay, it will give a property called formic object, the first param. Okay, inside that particular formic library, your handle submit function will be available, your state will be available, your errors will be available, your handle change will be available. Okay, so everything is available inside your formic object. Okay, so you can directly go ahead and I will do an object destructuring here. Okay, so handle submit. Same way here we have something called state, right? So it will give us in the name of values. Okay, here it is values. Okay, So same way, we need what else we need? We need handle change, right? Handle change. And what else we need? We need errors, right? So the same, it will come in the errors object. Okay. See, everything is given by your library itself. So we need not the handle submit here. We can directly call values here. Okay. We can call handle change function. We can call the errors object directly. See, we can call the errors object directly. Same way, we don't need state anymore. It's going to be values. And there is no this handle change here. You don't want to write anything. See, errors. We don't need states. We can directly go ahead with values. We don't need handle change. See, everything is done. Okay. Because your values, errors, handle submit, handle change, everything will be given by your formic library itself. Okay. So we don't need them anymore. Okay. So now in my app.js, instead of job application, I will have one more thing called job app. Okay. So job app from job app. Okay. So this is from your formic library. Okay. So job app. So instead of job application, I will have job app now. Okay. So I will go here. See the same form. See, no change at all. But we use something called formic library. Okay. Since we use formic library, see here, I'm typing it here. Okay. It's working. But we have no state at all. See, it's working as expected. See, same way I can enter here and I can enter here. Okay. If I do submit, see, submitted is called. Where's that particular submit is? We have given a function here, right? On submit, what should we do? Okay, console.log of on submitted here. Okay, so we don't need handle submit, we don't need handle change, we don't need values, we don't need errors. Everything has been handled. See the job application. So just compare them. So inside job application, what we did, we had a state for each and every form field. We have an error object for each and every form field. Okay, we had a handle change function, and we want to modify the state using set state. Then on submit, we need to use something called prevent default, and whenever the submit is handled, we need to call this particular function. Instead of doing something like this, okay, it will give you everything: handle submit, handle change, values, errors, everything. Okay, only thing is you need to just mention the initial values. Okay, and that particular values will be available here and bind them here. Okay, clear in the software, clear on the formic library. So now you are able to understand the difference between a normal React form and the formic library. Can everyone confirm? Please stop me at any point of time. I can explain it again. So if it is, yeah. So now we are the same form is ready. Okay, so no big change at all. We just everything is given by your library itself. Okay, so now one more property, that is something called I mentioned you, right, validate. Okay, so I told you, right, so in the job application for here we have did some validations, something like name for each and every form fix. Okay, same way we need to mention a function here, that's something called validate. Okay, so what is that particular function does this? Okay, here you know to do the validations. Okay, so basically what you'll get here is you'll get all the values. Okay, so I'll console them. Okay, so console.log of values. So you're to validate, so whenever you type in your form, this particular function will be called. Okay, so that's how it works. See here now, see, your all the values will be available here. So using this, you can do validations. So how can we do that? Okay, so if you go into the documentation here in your validate function, I told you, right, it will take values here, right? What you need to return here is you need to return the errors object directly. Okay, so you need not update the states and other things. Okay, basic thing is you need to return the error object. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So here I will be getting the values, right? So if values, so inside the values, what is the validation that we are going to do? Candidate name. Okay, so if the candidate name is empty, what should be the error message? Errors dot, okay, I need to have a object here. So const errors here. Okay, so the normal object, basic JavaScript object, empty object. Okay, so errors dot candidate name equal to, so what is the message? So we had here, right? So candidate name is empty, the same message, no big difference. Okay, so the next thing, what is the validation? So same here, so that we can add every validation one after another. Okay, so once this is done, so what should we validate? Else if values dot candidate age. Okay, the next level validation. So what we can have here, so here errors dot candidate age, and we can mention candidate age is empty. First, what's the next level? So else if values dot age greater than 18, sorry, less than 18, and we need to use number here because it's it will give you as a string. Okay, age of 18. So what should the error message? Errors dot candidate age. Okay, and candidate age, the same error message, so should be less, should not be less than 18. Okay, simple as that. That's it. Okay, so you need to return that particular errors. Okay, so whatever that you return here, okay, that will be available here. Okay, that's why error message will be printed here. Okay, so see here now. So I type in here, candidate name is empty. Okay, so here age, what is happening here? So value start candidate name. Okay, okay. So validation, how it happening here is, no. First, it will check for everything. Okay. So what it happens here is, you need to have something called blurred before using that. So I will explain you that. Okay, in short. Okay. So what will happen here? If I type in something like here, okay, what will happen if I type A? What will happen? It will come here. So for each and everything, it will come here, right? It will see there is something called, first it will check for value start candidate name. So because you typed A, it skipped this particular condition and goes to the next condition. And that's why candidate age is empty here. Okay, so that's the thing. So that's why it's shown something like this. Okay, so what you need to have here is, here we can have it in this way if needed. Okay, we can have it in that way. That's not an issue. So what I need to achieve here is, here I touched here. Okay, so there is an attribute called touch in your formic library. What it means is, here whenever you type in this time, whenever you touch this particular form, then only validation should be happened, right? So see here now, I am typing something here. Okay, so but candidate age is empty is throwing. What is the reason? It comes here, values dot candidate name, it checks here. Okay, and check for and says that candidate name is empty, but this is failed. So automatically else if condition will be going to the else if condition and check for the age, and candidate age is empty. So that's why this error is being thrown. Okay, suppose see here, if I remove this, it will come to this particular error message. So what is the reason? Here, first in the first condition itself, it got exceeded. Okay, so that's why candidate name empty is been printing here. Okay, so now what you need to do here is, there is something called touch data. Okay, so touch is nothing but whenever you type, so you come here and then come here, then only your age should be validated. Okay, so there is something called touch. So here it is. Okay, so you need to add a condition here. Okay, so let's see. So have you guys learned the blur, on change, on click, and other things? Have you learned on blur? Okay, so there is a function called on. There is a event called on blur. So this is very specific to JavaScript. Nothing new to your React. Okay, so what does on blur is? Whenever you go here, if you just touch this, okay, your handle blur will be called. That means what it means is, you have touched that particular form field. Okay, so then only the validation should happen. So if I come here, okay, if I refresh here, something like this, okay, if I do in this way, what will happen? So for example, if I type in here, okay, the other things should not be validated, right? So this should not be validated, right? Because I haven't touched that form field as well at all. Okay. So that's why we have something called on blurred. Okay. So there is a command called on blur. So see here now, handle on blur. Okay. So I'll add that as well. So you can add the properties to each and everything on blur and here as well. Okay. So the handle blur function. So in the case of React, we need to write that particular function in your Java application here. Okay. But here you can the handle blur and everything will be given by your normal things here itself. Okay. So now whenever you throw a message here, first thing is it should be touched. First thing is see here. See, watch it clearly. I am not touching any other form fields. I am modifying my React and Node developer alone. See here now. So why the validation is happening here? Because we haven't validated that this particular field is touched. Okay. So you need to validate that as well. Okay. So only when you touch that particular form field, the validation should happen. So that's why, see here, if I type in here, this particular form field is validating. So what is the reason? Because I haven't added a condition that this is not touched, and we need to add that particular condition. Okay. So there is an object called touch again here. Okay. So touch. So whenever there is an error and it is touched, then only you should throw your message. Okay. So here you just add a condition called touch. Okay. So whenever it is that particular form field is touched, then only you should do this validation. So that's the thing. Okay. So I'll copy the same. Okay, and have it in the candidate age section. Candidate age, and candidate age. Okay, simple. Okay, now if I go here. So now if I type in something here, okay, see candidate name is empty is thrown. Same way, if I type in something like this, okay, and if I don't have anything, why it is throwing here candidate age, candidate age. Okay, so first thing is we have added condition in that way. Okay, so you need to fill each and every form field, and then only other form field will be done. So if I'm coming here, okay, then the candidate age is empty here. Okay, so if I do here, candidate age should not be less than 18. Okay, so that's how your form field works. So what you need to grab from this particular point of time here is there is an attribute called touch here. Okay, so it will give you a value. Okay, so there is a function called onBlur in your JavaScript, HTML, basic HTML. For each and every form field, there will be a function called onBlur. What it means is whenever you just touch here, okay, so whenever you touch here, this particular function will be triggered. Okay, so triggered, what it means is it takes a tracking that this particular form field is touched. Okay, see the message now. Same way, I type in something here. Okay, and see candidate age is empty because you touch that particular attribute, and that's why error message is thrown. Suppose if I don't do this, something like see here, other things are not done here. Okay, because others are not disturbed. Suppose if I do something like this, the validation should happen only for this particular field, something like this. Okay, same way here. Okay, so hierarchy is you need to complete one more thing other than that. See here now. So first thing is this form field should be filled. Then this particular forms thing should be filled. If I do this, okay. So see here, if I do this, then the validation will happen for the next field. Okay. So clear on the on blur. So how did you guys miss on blur? So in your okay. So on blur is a main thing in your form. Okay. So you need to have a tracking of each and every touch. So same thing, how to apply, how to handle on blur here is we will have touched here. Okay, something like error. Okay, and have the same form field here, something like this. Okay, and whenever we will have a function for something like handle check, we will have something called handle blur. Okay, so whenever the particular form field is touched, okay, we will have the tracking here with that particular value. We will have something called true false. So basically this is the thing. Initially it should be initially it is not touched. Okay, so in on blur, okay, so what we'll do here is on blur, okay, we will have a function called handle blur. So then what we'll do is whenever the particular thing is touched, your handle blur function will be called, okay, and we will update the state to that particular candidate name to true, okay. So using that only we will be showing error message here, okay. So here I just showed you the errors alone, okay, but you need to consider the touched also, okay. So clear on this, clear on the touched part. Can everyone confirm? So why we use double initial values here? Yeah, that's what I told you, right? So property. So for a property, for props here, if you mention a number, something like this. If you want to mention a string, you will be mentioning something like this. If you want to mention, if you want to mention Boolean, we can mention something like this. True. Suppose if you want to mention array, you need to mention in this way, something like A, comma B and other things. Suppose if you want to mention the same object, how can I do that? That's why the double thing here. Clear? So why did I use? Okay. Can everyone confirm? Is it clear? So I couldn't get response from anyone. Please ask if you have any question. So that's not an issue. I can explain again. Okay. So can you repeat once? Okay. On blur part alone. Okay. See here. Okay. See here. So you don't want to confuse anything here. See, I will show you from the scratch. I'm going to hide this. I'm not going to use on blur anymore for now. Okay. So what I'll do is until your handle submit and the handle change, you are clear. So I'll come step by step. So until handle change and handle submit, you guys are clear, right? So only the handle blur part is, I think that would be the confusing thing for you. Okay. So I will do that now. So here, I'm going to refresh this page. Okay. So basic thing. If I don't have on blur or the touched attribute, okay, I will come from the scratch. I will remove these things. I don't need this. Same way, I don't need this for now. Yeah, I don't need the handlebar part here. Okay. And I don't need the touched attribute here. I don't need the handlebar part here. Okay. So this is until this you might have understood the concept. Okay. So see here now. So where did I use handlebar? I'll start. Okay, here it is. Okay. So now this is very common. Okay. So what we have did here, whenever we type in, okay, I told you your validate function will be called. Okay. So is it clear, right? So our validate function will be called and all the values will be applied here. Okay. So I'll do a console here. So if you need. Okay. So see here now. So if I type in, okay, all the value fields, candidate name and candidate age, and why not role applied? So role applied. Okay. So whenever I type in here, so this is very specific to formic library. Okay. So if I type in here, see candidate name, candidate age, candidate name has a value, yes, because I typed in here, and candidate role applied. Okay. But I didn't touch my candidate age field at all. Okay. But it is giving me the validation here. So this is not the ideal way, right? So if I type in something here, okay, only that particular form field should be validated. Okay. So if I remove this, so here if I remove this, it will do the same here. Okay. But if I type in here, it will manage other things as well. So what is the reason? Because in your if condition, what you have did here is when if I am refreshing here, if I type yes, okay, this function will be called. Okay. So that's why the log is printed. It will come here, the first condition. So it is your candidate name is not empty, right? Because you have typed yes. Okay. So it will move to the next condition. and it will check for candidate age is empty. Okay, so that's why this particular validation is thrown with even after I'm touching that, even I'm not touching that particular field, but the validation is done. Okay, so what is the reason? Because I am validating candidate age whenever there is a form field is modified. Here I am modifying this particular field. This particular field also validated. Okay, what is the reason? Because here first condition failed. Okay, so because your candidate name is not empty, right? It is something like value of SDAD, right? So next condition, it is going to next condition, and sees like candidate age is empty. Okay, and here in the if condition, the candidate age has some error and is just printing the error message. Okay, so far clear on this? Okay, now, so if you're clear on this, so how to overcome this? So how to overcome this? So basic thing, basic understanding is I didn't touch this particular field at all. Okay, I just typed in here. So in order to do that, we need to track that this particular each and every form field is touched or not. Okay, so that is what we need to track, right? So when like I touch this particular field alone. Okay, if I touch this particular field alone, I need a tracking that this particular field is touched. Okay, and the validation should be, or the error message should be thrown only for this particular field. Okay, and same way I didn't touch the candidate age field. Okay, so it is not touched yet, and the error message should not be thrown. Okay, so this is the scenario, right? So that's why there is something called handle on blur. Okay, so like on change, we have a function called on blur. Okay, so this is very specific to your HTML itself. So if you go here, so on blur, so see here, there is an event called on blur. See here, there are multiple things. So on blur is nothing but, see here, so basic JavaScript. So whenever I type in here, okay, so whenever I type in here, so what they have done here is I'm typing nm here. So where it is, see, on blur, they have made it to uppercase. Okay, so the logic they have written here is I touch this particular field. When I come out of this particular field, they are making it to uppercase. Okay, so that's the logic they have written here. But what is the case for us? We need to track that this particular field is touched. Okay, so we need to have something called, so in the case of job application, what we need to do here is, so in the case of normal React application, what we need to do here is we will have an object for each and every field. Okay, candidate name and candidate age. Okay, so what I'll do is here, what I'll do is I will have one more function called handle blur. Okay, so something like this. So here, what I'll do is I'll be getting again each and every input. Okay, see here on blur. Okay, this dot handle blur. Okay, simple. Same way for your age part alone, age part also. Okay, so here obviously inside event I'll be getting target, and obviously inside target I'll be getting name. Okay, so that's the thing. So what I'll do is I will print the name here. Okay, see, so this is your normal form, not your Java, not your not your formic library. Okay, so this is your old application. See here now. Okay, see, I am typing something here. If I come out of this particular field, see, candidate name. So now using this, we will have a tracking for each and every form field that this particular form field has been touched. Okay, so that's what we do. So what I'll do is in my formic library here. Okay, so I'll be getting the name here, right? The same set state here. Here instead of value, what I need to do? Initially it's false. Okay, so now it's true because I touched that particular form field. Okay, clear on this? So clear on this? Do you guys have any questions? So here inside my touched here, okay, I can have it in this way. Clear on this? So clear on this particular part? So what I have done here, initially I am just tracking each and every form field that whether it is touched or not. Okay, so that's the thing that I am going to achieve. Okay, In order to do that, I need a function called onBlur. Okay, onBlur, what it does is, whenever I type in here, if I come out of that particular form field, okay, it will the function that I mentioned here, right, that will be called. Okay, so I have written something called handle blur. Okay, here. Okay, and I am whichever the form that is typed here, I am updating the state to touch it to true. Okay, initially it should be false. So initially it's false, right? And it will be modified to true here, touched equal to another thing. So this is one way, or you can have touched here. Okay. So the same way that we did for error, right? So we'll take a copy of your touched also here. Here, that it should be touched. Okay. And we are going to modify the field, right? So touched of this particular name. Okay. So touched of that particular name. Okay. And modify it to true. Simple as that. And here it should be touched. And here. So now what will happen whenever I type in that particular field? Okay, suppose if I come here and type something like this, come out of this particular field will be updated to true because I have touched that particular field. Same if I type in the here and come out of that particular field, it will have a tracking here that it is updated to true. So now both the fields will be touched, and based on that we will have the message thrown here. Okay, so here in the state. Same way. So before moving on to the formic, this is clear. Can everyone confirm? So this is the critical part. Please understand. So there is one particular field which we don't touch at all, and then click on submit. Then with this method, the warning never gets displayed, right? Yes, it won't be displayed. So in the on submit function, you need to call the validate function. So that's how we need to do. Okay. So now in your job app, the same thing. I'm going to do that. Only thing is your handle blur, like on blur, right? So that's how everything is going to be handled by your formic library itself. Okay. So we are not going to do anything. Okay. So now see here, I'm going to do on blur. Okay. So I'm going to use something called handle blur. Okay. Because that particular function is given by your formic library itself. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing on blur and here as well. Okay. Simple. And we need to know whether it is touched or not, right? So whenever it is touched, then only we need to show this error message. Okay. So there, apart from errors, there will be another property called touched. Okay. So now you know whether this particular form field is touched or not. You know that particular field there is an error or not. Okay. Using if condition, you just mentioned that. So if there is an error, so basic thing is if it is touched. Okay. So if the candidate name is touched and there is an error in that particular form field, you need to throw this error. Okay. Clear on this? See here. If this particular form field is touched and there is an error, display this message. Same here. If the particular form field is touched, okay, and if there is an error in that particular candidate, then display this. Okay, so that is what we have done here. The same application here, instead of having handle blur by default from like we have, those things are done by your formic library itself. It will give us handle blur function. It will give us the touch dot attribute. Okay, so we just need to display the error message based on the touched and errors. So if that particular form field is touched and if there is an error in that particular name, we need to display that particular error. Okay, same way, if the particular form field is touched, okay, and there is an error in that particular age, we need to display the error for the candidate age. Okay, clear on this now? So clear on the on blur part and handle blur part now. So if I go here in my index.js or app.js, instead of job application, I can have job app. Okay. So if I refresh here, so if I do something like this, okay, see other fields are not validated, but now I touched it and going to the other field. So now it's showing me an error. Okay. So now if I type in here, see, so here we are missing something in our library here. So, okay, it's not. So see here, I'm typing here, I'm coming here, and instead of filling that, I'm going to the other next form field. Okay, it's throwing me an error. If I type in something like this, okay, again I'm facing some issue. So the number less than 18, candidate name should be less than age. Sorry, it should be candidate age, not the age. The value was different. Okay, so now I'm typing here. So see, other form fields are not disturbed because I haven't touched it. So now I touched my age category, and I'm going to merge developer here. Now it's throwing an error. So if I do this, it will throw me an error. If I do this, the error vanishes. Okay. So now if I remove this, okay, it will throw me an error. If I do this, it will remove the things. Same way, if I remove this, it will throw me an error. If I type in here, it will not throw me an error. Suppose if I do this, other things are not disturbed. Okay, clear? So clear on the handle blur part and touched attribute, touched value. Touched is not a keyword. You can use any name. So I just use touched. So we basically use touched. But in the case of formic library, touched is given by your library. Okay. So in the case of your formic, you need to manage. You need to use touched. But in the case of our own form, you can have any name. That's not an issue. Okay. So can everyone confirm? Clear and completely clear on the form parts? So now you are ready to build forms. So using React and both the formic library. So you should have that confidence now. So if you don't have it, please ask me now. I can do that. Okay. So now we are done with some basic things now. Okay. So now what we'll do is we are going to reduce some efforts also now. Okay. See here. We have mentioned on change, we have mentioned on blur, we have mentioned values, we have mentioned name, type, and everything, and the same format. Same way for age, the same value, on blur, on change. Same way for role applied, same value, on changed, and we missed to on blur here. So on blur as well. Okay. So this is kind of is it not looking like redundant? So everything has the same functionality, right? So then why don't we need this? So that's where your formic library gives us something called a field and errors. Okay. So see how your form get reduced now. Okay. So form, field, and error message. See here now. So these are the things that are given by your formic library. See, form, field, and error message. So these are some components. Okay. So see here now, instead of your own form, so instead of you mentioning on submit things here, you don't need them. Okay. You just use this particular form. So if you use this, you don't need the on submit at all. Your formic library will handle them. Okay. See, now it's reduced. Okay. So now you don't need on submit, handle submit, because your form itself will handle everything. Okay. So what I'll do is I will have this itself now. For now, I will take the copy of it and have a different function. So job app 2. Okay. So this is the advanced version of your same formic library. Okay. So the same formic library here in your render things. Okay. You used form and other things. Okay. So this is what I showed you so far, touched and everything. Okay. So now let's go on to some advanced level. Okay. So same the formic library. Here, instead of your normal HTML form, you can use directly a form here. Okay. So a component that has been given by your formic library. Okay. So if you use that, you don't need to mention handle submit. Okay. By default, it will take your handle submit. Okay. So we don't need handle submit now. Okay. Simple. So now there is something called field. Okay. So here you have something called input field here, right? See here now. Input, same way. Field. Okay. Give the name of the particular field here. Okay. And give the type of the field. Okay. So if you did this, you don't need values, on change, on blur, and anything. Okay. See how your code gets reduced. Same way for your age. Here, you just need to mention number here. and candidate age here. Okay. You don't need input type and everything, nothing. Okay. So everything will be handled by your things directly by your candidate name and other things directly. Okay. And same applies for your select here. Okay. So I haven't tried select. Okay. So for now, I will skip that. Okay. So now we have something called error message. Okay. So I am going to explain only two fields now. Okay. So I'll remove this for now. Okay. So I'll do this for now. So here I have two things. Okay. So see, now I don't need values, which is something called states. I don't need handle blur. I don't need handle change at all. Okay. So now see here, there is something called errors and candidate name. Okay. So now see here. Okay. So if we do this, give the same name that you mentioned for your error. Okay. So just mention the error message here. You don't need this anymore. See your code now. So you don't need this anymore. Just mention the same for your candidate age. Okay. See how your code get reduced. Now you don't need text. You don't need errors. Okay. So those touched errors, everything will be handled by your Formic library itself. Okay. So let's have it in the app.js. So I'm going to have one more thing called job app2, and here it's going to be job app2. Okay. So I removed one field alone. Okay. See now, type in here. See, candidate age is empty. So now suppose if I type in here, candidate name is empty. I type in here and go here. See, candidate age is less than 18. Okay. So 23. So everything will work as expected. No difference at all. But you have reduced your code to very simple. See here now, you need not have handle change. You need not have handle submit over here in your form. You don't need any other things. You don't need to add a condition like errors dot candidate name and touch dot candidate name, other things. Everything will be handled by your Formic itself. Okay. A field, a form, a label, a field, and its corresponding error message. A label, corresponding field, the error message, and finally input type submit. Okay. So this is an advanced level of Formic. Okay. So that's why your Formic library will reduce your time for development or the coding. Okay. To a very minimal level. Okay. So see, your form is, you can just add some field over here. You can add multiple form fields here. Okay. Just add them. Do the validation part alone. Everything, just add the field part and just give the name here. Everything will be handled by your Formic. Okay. You don't need to do anything at all. Once click on the submit, just get that particular data here. Okay. Clear on this? Clear on the advanced levels of Formic? Can everyone confirm? Okay, I could get some messages here. Can you submit form directly without any fill-in field? No. Okay. So here, you're on submit. So same here. It applies to whatever the thing, job application there. Here in your handle submit, okay, you need to add some condition that if there is an error message inside errors or not. Okay. So here, before submitting, okay, so before submitting, you just do a if condition and check if there is a error message inside errors. Okay. Then only you should allow them to submit. Okay. So you need to add some validations as well here. Okay. So same here. So someone asked me a question. Okay. If I don't fill in anything, okay. So if I don't fill in, then I click on submit. Okay. So now it will throw you an error because you use something called Formic library. Okay. Your Formic library will do everything for you. Okay. But if you use your own application, job application, you need to add a condition here that whether you need to check for in the this dot state dot errors. Okay. Inside that, if there is an error exist or not. Okay. So kind of things. So kind of those conditions you need to add in this place before you submit. Okay. But in the case of Formic library, it will add you the all your validations. Okay. So see here, you don't need to. So even if you submit, it will not allow you to submit. See now, if I do this, it is submitted. Okay. So that's why Formic is very efficient. Okay, so you can just come here. Okay, even if you submit, it will not allow you to do. Okay, but in the case of your own implementation, you need to add a condition here in your handle submit and check for your error messages here. So basic thing is you need to check whether your errors object has some data inside this particular thing. Okay, so basic array operation or object operation. Okay, so get the values of each and every form fields here. Okay, if anything is empty, you should just block them here itself. Okay, so basically how to do it here is, here you have an error object here, right? So here the same I will show you in an example here. So there's an error object here. Okay, so while you when you submit here, okay, so when you submit here, sorry, okay, so when you submit here, you need to check the each and every values. Okay, how to check that? So there is something called object dot values. Okay, so when you call the object dot values of errors, okay, what will happen? It will give you an empty object here. Okay, so using this, you can check whether this particular object is empty or not. Okay, if it is empty, if the values inside that particular values inside that particular error object is empty, you can just block them here itself. You should not allow them to submit. Okay, so those validation. So if you want to add them custom by customly, you can add them here. Okay, so I will have it here. So object dot. So that was a good question. See here. So object dot values. This dot state dot error. So did everyone understand what was the question? So I come here. Okay. So I am doing submit here. Okay. So in the case of formic, it will do everything. Okay. But if you do your own form handling, okay, so basic React handling, it will allow you to submit because you haven't added any validation in your handle submit function. Okay. So what is the validation? You need to check whether there is an error persist or not. Okay. So whether there is an error or not. Okay. So you can go ahead here, check all the error messages. Okay. So inside this dot state dot errors, there will be all the error message, right? So something like here, I told you, right? So here, so if there is a value, if there is no values inside that, if there is an empty value inside that particular object here, okay, you can just add a if condition and allow them to just pop out an alert that you haven't filled everything. Okay, so you need to add that conditions here. Okay, and then only, so if the form is valid only, or if there is no error, so something like this. So if there is no errors, okay, then allow them to submit. Okay, something like this. Okay, yes, just throw some alert message like please fill in every field, something like this. So alert of please fill all fields. Okay, you can throw it in message in this way. Okay, so it's just an understanding for the user. Okay, so just check the error subject exist or not. Okay, using this particular things. Okay, if there is an error, then throw them the message here. Okay, so please fill all fields. Clear on this? But in the case of your formic, everything is done by your formic itself. But what if in formic we got optional input like feedback and we can submit leaving it empty, right? If there is an empty field, so here there is a validation. That's why it's blocking you. Suppose if you don't have validation here, it will allow you to do. See here now, where I am, 54 app.js. Okay, see here now. So in the job app too, because you have the condition here, that's why it is blocking you. So see here now. What is happening here? Okay, sorry. Okay, so if I do something submit here, it is blocking you here itself. Okay, so what is the reason? Because you have given some validations inside your application. Okay, so here, okay, see here, it is not validating any other form fields. Okay, suppose if I stop this, okay, it will consider every form field has an optional attribute. See, now it will allow you to submit. Okay. So everything lies in your validate function here. Okay. So everything lies in your validate function. If you don't mention validate at all, every form field is optional. Okay. But if you have a validate function, okay, and inside that you mention like candidate name and candidate age, okay, it will validate candidate age and candidate name alone. Okay. For example, if you want to add some other value, so for example, so I will add one more. So since he asked, I can add one more thing. So here I will have something called candidate passed out here. Okay, so passed out. Okay, so I'll have, so consider this is something like a option field. Okay, because why it is an option field? Because I haven't added the condition for my passed out here. Okay, so see here now. So I will fill. So I'm doing submit here. So it will validate. Okay, same way it will validate here. If I do submit, okay, it will submit. Okay, because you haven't added validation to this particular field. Okay, so that's all. So if you want to have an optional field that you don't need validation, you just don't add them into your validation condition here. Okay, other than that, everything will work as expected. So nothing new here. Okay, clear? Clear on this? Can everyone confirm? How to remember formic parameter like values such? No. You need not remember. You need not like mug up them. Okay. So just have them. So basic things like, so when you start coding, okay. So when you start the building application, okay. So these terms will be very familiar to you. Okay. So handle change, handle submit. So these are all some common words that the web developer use. Okay. So that's, it's not like you need to mark up those parameters. Okay, you can refer the documentation and use it then. Okay, so see, in my case, okay, I just took from the documentation itself. Okay, so I just did not type from the scratch. Okay, I just took some copy from the documentation only, right? So that's the way. Okay, so you need not mug up everything. You just need to know, so this your formic library supports these things. So what is the input that you want to take from formic library is, you just need to know, so these things are possible using formic library. Okay, and you don't need to know that. So those parameters like initial values or handle chain, these parameters you need not know in your, you need not mug up them. Okay, so only thing you need to know here is what are the things that are possible from the formic library. So whenever, for example, if your TL or the manager comes to you and they ask you certain requirement, like you need a form, you need to build a form, and it has some certain form fields, you need to do some validation, and it should be done in like 1 hour or 2 hours. Okay, in that case, or if it is like very simple application, you can directly go ahead with formic library. So instantly you should it should insist in your brain that you need to use formic library, and automatically you need to come to the documentation and see the form fields and use them. Okay, so it's not mandatory that you need to mug up those things. Okay, so but that's the thing, take the things, just take the logic from the library. You need not mug up everything, even in React also. Okay, so for example in React, okay, so you need to know the fundamentals like states, props, and what it does and other things. Okay, so in something like in upcoming sessions, you will be seeing some advanced concepts. Okay, so in the advanced concepts, so there may be like multiple syntaxes, how to use certain concepts and other things. Okay, in that case you need not mug up the syntax. Okay, so you just need to know. So okay, so these are all the things that are possible, that are possible using React. Okay, so when then there is a requirement pops up to you. Okay, you can just assume or just think of that particular requirement and directly come to that particular logic in your React. Okay, and make use of it. Okay, please don't mug anything. So when you type in or when you start practicing, everything will come to you. It will get registered in your brain. Okay, so that's not an issue. Okay, yeah. Then that's it. Okay, so that's it for today's session. So please try out all the fields that I shown you. Okay, okay, and what you do here is, so is the formic library specific to React? Yes. So if you go on the document, the first page itself, they will show you build forms in React. Okay, without TS. This is only for your React. Okay. So that's it for today's session. If you have any questions, please do ask me. Um, before moving on to form, please be strong in your fundamentals. So how to start with your application, state, props, and other things. Okay. So when you start typing, start going with the forms and other things, you will get to understand the fundamentals in a very strong manner. Okay. So please do those things. And the task for today is so the task for today is the to do app. Okay. So that's the task for today. So what you need to do here is you need to have a form. Okay. It will have an input text box. Okay. Input type text. So input type text here. Okay. And you will have a submit button. Okay. So what you need to do is when you need to validate them. Okay. So whether that particular text box is empty or not, like empty or not. And once if it is not empty, submit it. Okay. So that's the simple form. Okay. So when you submit that particular button, okay, so have the array inside your state. Okay. So there is a this dot state here, right? So something like this. Okay. So you will have an array here, to-do list. Okay. Inside that there is an array. So whenever you submit, okay, so just push to that particular array. Okay. That's it. So very simple task. Okay. Just have an input type text. Okay. Submit it. Whenever you should type something like inside that particular text box. When you click on the submit, okay, it should be added to the state inside your to-do list. Okay. So each and every submit that you, which and every things that you type and submit, those values should be inside your to-do list. Okay. And here, you just add some validations like you should not mention special characters. Okay. You should mention only numbers and text. Okay. So you should not mention any other special characters. Okay. So that's not a big deal. Just go to the website and go to just surf the Google. It will show you some JavaScript validations. Okay. So everything is JavaScript. So no, nothing with nothing with respect to React. Okay. So this is the task for you. Okay. So what is the task? To do app. Okay. So you need to have a text box and a submit button. Okay. So using that submit button, so when you submit that particular button, you should add them to the to-dos list. Okay. So array. Okay. This is your first task. So task 1. Okay. Task 2 is you have pushed all your array to your to-do list, right? So you pushed your to-do list. Right? You should display all your to-do list below this particular form. Okay. So that is your task. First task is have an input type text, type in anything here, have a validation. Okay. Only number, only text and number. Okay. No special characters. Okay. When you click on submit, so push that particular text that you typed here, right, into the to-do list array inside your state. Okay. So this is your first task. Okay. So once you done this, okay, display all your to-do list. So inside whatever the text you use here, okay, display all your to-do list below that particular form. Okay, in a table or whatever the thing that you want to have. Okay, you can use that table. Okay. So this is the task for you. It can be in Formic or it can be, but I prefer is use React forms. Okay, then only you will get to know how handle change works. Always go with your React forms. Okay, when you are in the learning phase. Okay, so then only you get to know handle those handle change, handle blur, handle submit, and doing validation things. Okay, please don't directly go with the Formic library at the learning phase. Okay, so this is your first task and second task. Okay. Now, okay, so this is enough. Okay, so if you prefer, I will have one more thing. Okay, so when you push this particular to-do list, okay, so into your to-do list, okay, it should be an array of object. Okay, so this is, I'm not okay, so what I will do here is, okay, this is not mandatory, but if you want to try this, if you want to try this. Okay, very simple. Okay, so when you push this text to your to-do list, okay, push it as an object. Okay, and have text something like this. Text equal to, suppose if I type something like it's to do, right? So wake up early. Okay, suppose I have some condition something like this. Wake up early. Okay, so add this message here. Okay, and add date to this. Okay, So the date that you typed in here. Okay. So whenever you click on submit, right, add the date to that particular field. Okay. Same applies to other field as well. Okay. So whenever you push, you just whenever you submit button, whenever you do submit button, just push the text. Okay. Also with the new date. Okay. Something like this. So new date to this particular date field. Okay. And display them in a table. Okay. Something like to-do list. Okay. It should have a table and the text item that you pushed and the date. Okay. Or the time, date and time basically. Mention them in the second column. Okay. First column is your to do, whatever that you typed in. Second column is the date and the time that you mentioned. Okay. So try out this particular thing. Okay. So is it easy for you, right? Hope it should be easy. Clear on the task? So to do app, text box, validation, submit, push to array in state, display all the to-dos in table. Okay, push to array in state with the to-do and current date and time. Okay, so display all the to-dos in table with date and time. So that is a task for you. Okay, please try out this and don't use Formic. Okay, so that's the thing. Use only React forms. Okay, so don't use Formic library. So it's a blank. Is it blank? Here it is. Okay, so please fill out the feedback form. Okay, and that's it for today's session. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. And yeah, have a great rest of the day. Yeah, bye bye.